What's going on, everybody? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back for the second edition of the Andrew Piluk Hockey podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the first one. Again, this is a trial and error thing. I'm just trying to see what the best way to do this is. I'm not sure when this one will be posted. I'm recording this around 10 o'clock on December 14th. So you're probably going to see this on the 15th or 16th, or I'm not sure I'll be able to get it up before midnight, but the last one went up around 1 a.m. and it still got a pretty good reaction and view count and stuff like that. So thank you guys very much for wanting to see that and supporting the first podcast. So this should be a lot of fun. I'm going to have guests on here as much as possible, so it won't just be me talking the whole time, because it is difficult. I'm not going to lie. It is a little difficult to talk by yourself for such a long time. So I'm going to bring up some stuff that I'm going to be talking about in videos probably on the 15th. I didn't upload anything as far as right now. I might still be able to get something up before midnight, but I had some stuff to do today. I had family over, and it's a busy time of the year, so I just didn't have any time really to do anything at this point. I've been uploading like almost 3 times a day recently, so hopefully you guys are okay with that. But the first thing I wanted to start off with, and I will be going more in depth to it in a video, is TSN did the trade bait board. And I make a video on this every time it's updated. I've already done it once for this year. It is a lot of fun to discuss it, and I'm not sure if this is going to go up before the video's uploaded. It probably, I'm not sure, but regardless, I'm going to talk about it in the podcast, and I'll talk about it on a video because I like being able to discuss it even more here on the podcast. But the trade bait board sometimes is really accurate, but it also can be kind of a clickbait type of thing as well, because some of the stuff and some of the players that are on here doesn't really make sense to me, because there's teams that are probably going to be rebuilding, but that doesn't mean they're just going to be selling the farm, getting rid of literally every single player on their team, and including some of the young pieces. Like, I'll bring this up in the video, and if you've already seen the video, then you'll already know my opinion on it. But Colton Parayko at number 1 on the TSN trade board, the trade bait board on TSN. This doesn't make sense to me based off the fact that the St. Louis Blues have basically said, to the media and, to people who have the inside track on it, that Colton Parayko might be one of the guys that would be an off-limits type of pick or player. He's a right-handed D, which is already something that you want with size. He's, 25 years old. 29 games played. He has 8 points, 5 goals at the time I'm recording this on the 14th. His cap hit is at 5.5 for the next 3 years, which is pretty respectable because he's a big guy. He's able to, hit people. He's just a good all-around defenseman. Not maybe a tad overrated when it comes to trade value, but still, how much it costs for a right-handed defenseman, especially a pretty good one. And he tops the list. I just don't understand how Colton Parayko is even on this list to begin with. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. The St. Louis Blues are not going to get rid of their future. I mean, Parayko's a huge part of this team in the future. He's only 25 at 3 more years at that cap hit. Come on, you're not going to find a defenseman that cheap. Like, look at Jake Gardiner from the Toronto Maple Leafs. This offseason, depending on if the Leafs are able to hold on to him, which it's looking more and more like he won't be able to, the Leafs won't be able to hold on to him. He's gonna make like between $6 and $7 million a season. People don't want to hear that, but I mean, Jake Gardner's making like less than $5 million right now, and he's put up 50 points. He's a pretty mobile defenseman. He's an offensive type of defenseman, and a lot of teams don't have a guy who can fill the score sheet. And people are like, oh well, he's awful defensively, this, that, and the other. You know what? In a good environment where the Leafs are a good team, of course, we all know that. But if Jake Gardiner has a partner who is defensively sound, can play a good defensive style of game, then Gardner's a little bit more free to make a couple extra mistakes here and there because somebody's there to back him up. And unfortunately, I like Nikita Zaitsev, but having Nikita Zaitsev as your partner isn't really much of a security blanket. So let's say Jake Gardiner, look what happened with Erik Karlsson. They put him with Mathot, and those two looked great together because Mathot was able to be the stay-at-home guy that did his job, put up some points here and there, but Karlsson was able to just go. And I'm not saying it's not working in San Jose, but it just hasn't, been to the same potential that it was in Ottawa. Like he just doesn't look the same. I know they've been saying he's been playing pretty good, but he just looked better with Method in Ottawa, to be quite frank with you. Then there's some other names on this list that make sense, like Jake Muzzin. His name's been tossed around. Kevin Hayes. Like the Rangers and Kings and like some of these teams that are sort of in the process of maybe retooling or rebuilding, like those players make sense to me. Michael Furlan on Carolina, not sure why they would want to get rid of him. I know he's a UFA. He'll be looking for a big raise, but what's up with Carolina and possibly getting rid of more offense when they don't have it in the first place? Like that doesn't make sense to me. Brett Pesce is number 4 for Carolina on this trade bait board. Like some of these these players just don't make sense to me. A 23-year-old defenseman as the number 4 trade piece, and this is what I'm gonna say as well, because this just came up in my head and it honestly makes complete sense. So Parayko at 1, and you've got Pesce at 4. I'm trying to see some other names on this list. Which names make sense? Number 14, Justin Falk, although that name was tossed out. Let's just start off with Parayko and Pesce. So those two guys were names tossed around when William Nylander wasn't signed with the Leafs, when the Leafs were looking for maybe making a trade. That's the reason why those names are there, in my opinion. I can't see why they would want to put those names back up there. Like maybe Pesce, but I would have him around the 15 to 10 range. I wouldn't have him at number 4, because I think Carolina, while they're, maybe wanting to get more forward help and that could get rid of defensemen, I feel like they would be better off trading Falk, although his trade value isn't as much, because Pesce has got 5 years left at a $4 million contract, and he looks okay. He doesn't look fantastic, but he does look good. Whereas you've got a guy like Falk who's got 1 year left at 4.83, who can put up some decent numbers. I think he's a career minus defenseman for sure. Not playing on very good teams. By the way, quick side note, people don't like when I say it's a podcast and it's supposed to be more of a conversational piece. Sometimes if I say like and I mean, I'm talking by myself for quite a bit of time, and to collect your thoughts for that long sometimes takes a little bit of pausing and and that stuff like that. I'll try to work on it, but for now, that stuff's going to be in there. But back to what I was saying, it just makes more sense for a guy like Justin Falk to be a guy moved for offense. Like, you don't want to completely get rid of a 23-year-old on a very favorable contract. Like, Pesce in a couple of years could look a lot better, but he also could look a lot better as a trade piece at that $4 million cap hit, or that could really help Carolina if they're making a run. So I just don't see why Brett Pesce or Colton Parayko make sense. I think those names are only there because of the William Nylander saga. And I haven't watched the interview that they usually do along with this. I can't remember who does this. Frank Saravelli on TSM. I haven't checked what usually they do like a video description or audio description of why some of these players are on there. Maybe they'll say the same thing in regards to the Nylander stuff, but it just doesn't make sense for those two to be on there. Charlie Coyle makes sense based off of what we've heard, that Minnesota might be in a retooling phase or rebuilding. Dumba looks incredible for them. Funny quick story here. Matt Dumba was the guy I wanted the Leafs to take instead of Morgan Rielly, because Rielly had played very minimal games before he got drafted. And who was he with? Red Deer or something like that? I can't remember, but Morgan Rielly just hadn't been playing, and I was like, why did they make this pick? Like, what's Berkey thinking here? And it ended up being a really good choice, but Dumba's a good player too. I mean, Dumba's a real good defenseman. Sorry, I had to take a quick break there. Anyways, what I was saying was, I'm not sure where I'm going to cut this off actually, but regardless, the story I was telling was about the Guelph Storm today making a trade. They traded Ryan Merkley, star defenseman who got drafted in the first round by the San Jose Sharks. Just talking about trades here, that's huge. I think Guelph really liked him, although he had attitude issues, I guess, and I wasn't in the room. I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to say really anything on that because I think it's unfair. From what I've seen from him, incredible defenseman, offensively gifted. He's obviously working on his defensive side of the game, but he'll be a good San Jose Shark, that's for sure. Or if, if anything happens going somewhere else, but I'm pretty sure he's going to look pretty good in the NHL. Regardless, well, let's get back to the TSN trade bait board. I was talking about Charlie Coyle. That definitely is probably going to happen. Gustav Nyquist, he's a UFA. Like, you're going to see a lot of UFAs on this list. And again, if you've seen the video, I'm not sure when I'm going to be posting it. I always do this. I'll probably only do like the top 15 and just quickly mention something. This is an interesting piece. I wonder if the Leafs would be interested in Jay Bouwmeester. Now, hear me out. If a Leaf fan is watching this right now and you're like, this guy is crazy, I wonder if Jay Bouwmeester, if they ate like half of his cap, if St. Louis ate half the cap hit, because he's at a $5.4 million cap hit. He doesn't put up a lot of points, but I'm wondering if Toronto would be interested. Now, he's 35 years old. Like, I'm not saying he's like some star defenseman, but St. Louis fans, let me know, how has he been doing this year? I haven't really kept up with Jay Bouwmeester, but I used to really like him. I thought he was a really underrated defenseman. I wanted Toronto to have him for a season or two just to see how he would play, because I do know he's had a really, really good NHL career, like quietly. I think a lot of people, have slept on Jay Bouwmeester in his career, and if you're not hip to the lingo, I guess, slept on means like people are basically ignoring Jay Bouwmeester. Of course, you got to have like that hip lingo in there, and unfortunately, I get caught in it sometimes. But Jay Bouwmeester, that's an interesting one. I need a scouting report on him this year. I haven't heard much about him. Is he really slowing down? Because if so, then we don't need another Ron Hainsey. Alec Martinez, that makes sense on the Kings. He's dropped to number 16. Now, one thing I'm not seeing on here, oh, here we go. Sergei Bobrovsky at number 20. He was fairly close to the beginning a while ago. I'm trying to see. I think they wrote something here. The usual suspects, including Matt Duchene, Artemi Panarin. That's what I was looking for. Bobrovsky, Wayne Simmons, and Jakob Silverberg. I was looking for those names. Phil Kessel's on this at number 30. That doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, Kasperi Kapanen and Andreas Janssen are here as well. And I might as well do an extension on that in here too. I know there's a lot of Leaf fans that are listening to this, because I know a lot of my viewership is Leafs fans, which I 100% appreciate. This is the hard truth, okay? The Leafs are going to be in a bit of a crunch next year, and you're going to see guys like Jake Gardiner probably leaving unless he takes a healthy pay cut, which even then might not be enough. The only way that the Leafs are going to be able to keep Kasperi Kapanen is with some magic. And I don't think people have really considered that. And don't start talking about Nylander. Nylander is a better player. I'm sorry, he's just better. And he will end up being much better. He just needs to get back into the swing of things. And I'm giving him another week, because even the pros are saying, you got to let this guy have another at least like 5 to 10 days. Like Babcock said, it's going to take a little while. It's going to take at least another 5 to 10 days. Kapanen has 22 points so far this season. He's looking real good. He's got 12 goals, and he's just under $1 million, $863,000. Well, not just under, but you know what I mean. He's an RFA. A lot of teams would be considering Kasperi Kapanen as a choice for a player to be on their team. Like that's the obvious part. The Leafs they're not going to be able to hold on to everybody unless they make some moves. These are the moves that I'm considering Kyle Dubas makes, and my buddy Downtown Stephen Brown, go follow him on Twitter. You can see I always tweet him, so you can find him fairly easily. Actually, him and I tweeted at each other last night. He's a good follow if you want to talk to him about the Leafs. And Andreas Janssen being there too makes sense. But the Leafs might have to trade the contract of Nathan Horton to get out of the LTIR stuff, which they might be able to, but they're going to have to, put a healthy pick in there for a team, and maybe even a decent prospect. Like maybe not decent, but a one that can at least have some promise to remove that contract. And the same thing goes for Nikita Zaitsev. You're probably not going to have to give up the farm to remove his contract, but that's tough because you need defensemen. And at that point, if you can get rid of Zaitsev, you might actually be able to keep Gardner at a pay cut. But in order for the Leafs to keep Kapanen, like the Leafs, I don't think expected Kapanen to to do what he's been doing so far. Like, he looks really good. And he just went from a guy that you could get away with paying 2.5 million to a guy that could demand 4.5. And that's like an awful case scenario for the Leafs. It's good that they have so many good players, but the fact of the matter is now you're looking at a guy that's going to demand a lot more money. So I'm wondering if the Leafs are talking to his camp already to see if they can lock him up, because like I keep saying over and over, it's not going to be easy for the Leafs to hold on to a guy like Kapanen. It's just that cap going up $2 or $3 million is going to save the Leafs. If it turns around and it doesn't end up going up to like 83 million, that's just going to put them in an even bigger situation. Now, let me add this. The year after this year, when Marleau comes off the books and the cap's probably going to go up another $2 or $3 million like it always does lately, then the Leafs are probably going to have a little bit more flexibility, and you'll see them be back with, a healthy amount of cap space to be able to maybe acquire a piece at the deadline, because the window's open for the Leafs right now. They have just under $6 million now. They'll be tight next year, but then, they'll open up more cap once some of these guys are off the books, and that obviously includes Patrick Marleau. But it's really going to be tough. You almost have to remove the Horton contract. You might have to trade a guy like Connor Brown, dealing a guy like Janssen, because the cheaper contracts have to come in. Because even Janssen, 13 points so far, if he demands $1.5-2 million, you might even be going, oh man, this is going to be a little tough. I'm still working on making the video with Downtown Stephen Brown about the Leafs and how they can, allocate their cap money and for everybody in the off season. It's difficult. I've done a couple of them already, but I wasn't happy with how it ended up, so I'm going to continue to do that. But yeah, just getting back to the list in general, Panarin's still on there. I would expect him to be much higher. Simmons is at 15. Now, some Flyers fans have been mentioning to me that Simmons might be a guy that the Flyers try to hold on to, but I keep trying to tell people, yeah, like, it makes sense. Like, the Flyers want to keep him. He's a fan favorite. Fan favorites don't just get to stay because they're fan favorites. Like, that just doesn't happen. What's going to happen here is if the Flyers don't like the number that Simmons is approaching with, they're not going to give it to him. He's a UFA on July 1st this summer. It's a long ways away. They have a lot of time to talk to him. I know that they've been discussing it with him right now. But the problem with him talking, his agent or whatever, talking to Ron Hextall, was that they were looking, and according to sources, he was looking for a 6-year deal, and I'm guessing that cap hit probably started with a 5 or a 6, because Wayne Simmons is a guy that could probably demand that much money. That's just how this era works now. Like, Simmons has proven that he can score, he can put up points, he's a two-way player, he can hit, he can fight. He's not the type of guy you want to run into. He's a bruiser. He'll hit you and he can score. That's a rare breed in the NHL these days. So I guess I can't say rare breed. No, I can. I think Simmons' type is a rare breed because he's just so damn good at what he does. And that's going to demand a little bit of extra money. Do the Flyers want to pay him that? I don't know. That's a question for the GM. And if they can't work something out, the Flyers are going to have to trade him. Unless they really feel that they can get something done, it's not like the William Nylander thing. And I keep trying to tell people that too. People are like, well, they're going to talk. He's a fan favorite and this, that. Look at Nylander loves playing in Toronto. Dubas loves Nylander as far as we know. It took them until almost the deadline. Like, Nylander almost didn't play hockey this season. They were 5 minutes away from him not playing hockey this season. So it can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're buddy with the GM. It doesn't matter if you're a fan favorite. If Wayne Simmons' number is too high and he doesn't, or vice versa, if he doesn't like the number that they're giving him, if it's too low for him, he's going to say, well, I'm going to keep waiting until you guys give me a better offer. And that's just going to, the Flyers are going to have to turn around and say, well, we're not doing so hot this year. We're kind of scared you're going to walk at the end of the year. So we're going to have to move you. So that's something to look out for. Again, I'm going to be making the video. Cody Cece's on here. Who else is on here? Justin Falk. Silverberg, to me, I don't understand why he's still on there. The Ducks are doing well. I don't know if they're maybe looking for another defenseman, but their blue line seems fine. Alex Steen, that's an interesting one. He's got just under $6 million for 2 years. I would imagine some cap would have to be eaten because I just don't see how that would make sense for anybody. Jimmy Howard at number 10 is the first goaltender on the list. I don't know if there's actually any other goaltenders beside Bobrovsky. Oh no, Cam Talbot. Wow. He's a UFA at the end of this year. That's an interesting situation. So Howard, we heard, could demand a first-round pick from Detroit. If they trade Gustav Nyquist too, he has 29 points. What a cheap cap hit for just this season, obviously. The Detroit could really pick up some good stuff. I would imagine they'd want to keep Nyquist, though. Same with Howard. I don't know if they're going to move any of those guys. Bobrovsky, I think he's going to free agency, and I think he's going to get his money, and it's not going to be Columbus. I think Philly might jump on that. Cam Talbot, now that's an interesting one. Oilers fans, if you guys are listening, or just anybody really, he's 31. He's not having a good season so far. I think he has 18 starts. Yeah, games played. He's played in 18 games, and it looks as though Koskinen, or I think that's how you pronounce it, has kind of taken that starting role under Hitchcock. I'm going to check my phone right now, actually. I want to know who's starting for the Oilers tonight. Well, regardless, we'll look at the stats real quick here. 3.22 goals against average, .894 save percentage, and a $4.17 million cap hit. That's pretty good. Now, I don't want to be the guy that says this, but I texted my buddy a couple times before, and I was telling him, like, last year, I'm like, man, I don't know about Talbot. And he was kind of telling me, no, just wait on it, just wait on it. But, yeah, Mikko Koskinen, I think that's his name, right? Yeah, Mikko Koskinen. He's playing again tonight. The Oilers are up 3-0 currently when I'm recording this, so obviously the game will be over and you guys will already know all this stuff. But as I'm reading this, his stats, he's currently at 10 wins, 3 losses, 1 overtime loss, and 3 shutouts. Wow. 2.20 goals against average, .927 save percentage. That starting spot for Talbot is gone. Like, he lost his spot for sure. Let's check who scored the goals real quick just for the hell of it. Chiasson. 14 goals for Alex Chiasson. That is insane. Adam Larson just got his first. Not a big fan of him, not going to lie. Connor McDavid got his 18th, of course. He's already got a 2-point night. Not a big surprise. Draisaitl's got 2 points. And Spooner and Chiasson both have a point each. Chiasson has the goal, and Spooner has an assist. How's Spooner been doing with the Oilers? Of course, we're going through an Oilers thing here. After I check Spooner's stats, we'll get back to the talk about Talbot real quick. Where's Spooner? Oh, there he is. With the Oilers, okay, so he only has, well, this would be his third point in 14 games played, so not exactly doing all that hot. Oh, the Rangers. That's where Strome went, right? Hold on. Let's check Strome real quick on the Rangers. He's the one that was traded. Ryan Strome was traded on the other way. 11 games played. He has 6 points. And I think he's playing in his 12th game tonight. Oh, they already lost in overtime, and he had no points. So it looks like at least Strome's at least playing a little better. But that trade sucked. Oh, my God. The Larson trade and the Strome trade was not very good. Regardless, we'll get back to Talbot. That is a guy I don't think would get traded at the deadline, as the Oilers probably want to have him in that backup role unless they're making a swap for, another goalie, or they figure they can, pick up a goalie cheaper as a backup option. Because I think the Oilers still want to make a run. Hitchcock has been, making them play much better. Actually, let's just click on the old computer here. Let's see what the standings are currently. Because I know the Oilers have been playing pretty good under Hitchcock. And I've got another segment I want to talk about real quick here. Hopefully these are really up to date. So the Oilers have 37 points. The first place in Pacific is Calgary with 42. So, like, that is easily, like, you could easily get there. They're 17, 12, and 3 as I'm recording this. And they're playing good tonight. So if Vegas loses, no, they're going to win tonight. If their game is already over. Regardless, they're, like, with a win, they can jump up to second place or tied for second place in the Pacific Division. So this is wide open. I mean, even the Canucks have 32 points. The Coyotes have 30. Like, those are all numbers that you could probably get up there. The Kings are at 24. I don't think they're doing nothing. Coyotes maybe not either, but at least they're, in reaching, I guess you could easily get there. It's still a lot of time left, but without Ranta, they're not looking too good. But I think Talbot lost his spot, and him being on the trade bait thing is a little weird. I don't know if that makes sense to move him, but they might lose him in free agency if they figure Koskinen's their guy now. And let's just quickly, I want to look up Mikko Koskinen again. His age. I think he's been in the NHL before, but he's back in the NHL now and playing much better with the Oilers. He's 30 years old. I mean, they could still give him a 2 or 3 year deal and hope that he does well and not have to overpay, because they did get him for 2.2 or 2.5 for 1 year, and people were really mad about that move on Chiarelli's part, but it looks pretty good for now. And yeah, he was in the Islanders organization or something like that. Regardless, that's the trade bait. I'm going to be talking about that in the video too, but excuse me. I wanted to talk about fighting in the NHL. So I was looking, Post posted a video on this. If you want to go check that out, if you've seen it already, you would know what I'm talking about. But I think it was in one of their podcasts. They were talking about fighting majors and stuff like that, and they were talking about how like fighting has really gone down. So this year, Arizona has 2 fights. The Golden Knights have 3. Tampa has 3. Penguins have 3. Like, a lot of teams have 3. The Leafs have 4. The most fights in the league is the Bruins and Rangers. They have 12 apiece. Now, looking at fighting stats since 2012, the 2012-13 season, which I believe was the lockout season, there were 720 games, 347 fights. The year after that, the 2013-14 season, in 1,230 games, 469 fights. 2014-2015 season, same amount of games, 391 fights. The 15-16 season, in 1,230 games, there was 340 fights. Now, why is this not showing me any more numbers? Regardless, the numbers have not, like, they've obviously been going down. The numbers, the amount of fights and stuff like that, which to me is good. I like watching a fight here and there, but it's getting to the point where so many people are getting like concussions, and people are coming out, from old stories about having concussions, and it really sucks to see. Like, there's a lot of players that I grew up watching that I was big fans of. Like, I was a huge Ty Domi fan, and he got in a lot of fights. If you've watched Ty Domi, he got in a ton of fights. And while I liked it, I guess I never really understood the side effects of something like that. Like, you hear about the Bob Proberts, rest in peace, of course, the Derek Bogards, rest in peace to him as well. I'm still trying to finish reading his book. I really have to, but a lot of these guys, and like Wade Belak, rest in peace, just so many. I shouldn't even be saying that. They should still be alive. They're too young to go. My question here is, and I'd like to do this like every podcast, is do you think that fighting should still be in the game? Like, do you really think there's a place for it? I still think there is every once in a while, but the game has got to the point now whereas if there's like a risky hit, somebody like a borderline like risky hit, like one that you probably could just be like, okay, it's just a hockey hit, whatever, you're dropping the mitts. Like, if it's a bad hit, then yeah, you got to stick up for your teammates. Like that Boston game the other night, like I think after the Hyman hit, they stuck up for McAvoy, good. After Riley got clipped by Wagner, Hainsey stepped in, that was good. Like, those make sense. Like, those make a lot of sense. But if we're talking just like a regular hit on the boards and it's just loud and it's just a hockey hit, like, people are turning around and just chucking the gloves. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me. It's just a normal hit. I don't think that those fights belong in the game. But as you can see, like, if some teams are only fighting, twice so far through over 30 games, you can really tell those numbers have gone down. You're seeing a lot more skilled players in the game. And while it sucks for, guys who grew up going through the minor league system and stuff like that, who came up basically fighting, they're losing jobs. It's just not good. People constantly punching each other in the head. Like, it's just you're looking for something bad to happen, basically. So I don't know. My question to you guys is fighting still have a place in the game? Do you think it's, you still enjoy it? Do you like watching fights? Let me know. And I think I'm going to end it there. That was just kind of like a segment I wanted to do. And again, as I get through these podcasts. I think my last one was a couple days ago. I'll probably have more topics the next time. But I do like to, ramble on sometimes, and I do that in videos. And I figured the podcast would be a good way for me to be able to ramble a little bit, so that way it's not just the video content where I'm just saying, I'm trying to make the sentences and everything not run on too long. Here I can at least talk longer, and when I have guests and stuff in here, because I definitely will, and I also do the Audi and AP Sports podcast, which is going to be coming back really soon, like this weekend probably. I'm able to, talk back and forth with somebody, and I don't want to have a full-time guest on here because it is my podcast. Like with Audi and AP, at least that's both of us, and I'm sure Audi wants to do his own stuff too, and he has other podcasts he's working on, like the Back Deck podcast, I believe it's called. You can check it out on Twitter. He hasn't posted any yet, but at least follow that account so that way I think it's him and his buddy Owen. He's both great guys, obviously. I think they're the ones that are going to be doing it, so make sure to check that out. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. Of course, it was just the second one, so I've done a lot of podcasts before, but this is the second one I've done really by myself. I've done a couple maybe by myself before, but on this channel, it's only the second one, and hopefully you guys do enjoy it. If you're new, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because it's not just podcasts. There's lots of videos and streams as well. I'm trying to expand my content. And like the video, because liking the videos really does help. Commenting, PG, nice stuff, and cooperating with each other, that's also good for me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Again, make sure to click that notification bell because you get notified for everything I post. And I'll see you guys in the next video stream or podcast. Peace.